Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Price, and as you can see, we are currently in my a little test world that I've been playing around in for doing some sort of horse race circuit. In fact, the final product, if I end up going through with it, will be completely different from this, but this was a good area for testing different things out. Now, despite starting this video in Minecraft, as is normal, today we're going to be doing a bit of a departure. Not that I really have a set format that I go by, but whatever. And we're going to look at something that I've had a lot of questions about in the past. More specifically, how I do my recording and some of my settings. As apparently I have reasonably good quality videos with good quality sound, and people seem to take notice and ask questions about that. More specifically, about a week ago, I had a user by the name of the 1up11. I do believe that's how you pronounce his name. If not, I apologize. Write me asking, how do you compress your videos, and what are your render settings? If you do a video on those, I will be so grateful. Well, Mr. 1up11, prepare to be very grateful, because that's the purpose of this video. Although instead of just focusing on those particular attributes, what we're actually going to be doing is looking at the whole recording process from start to finish, including hardware and a lot of other things. And I'll go through the whole list. But before I get into that, let me first, address some of the people that I know might be waiting on other videos that I'm supposed to be working on, which I am. More specifically, some of the server stuff and some of that stuff. I do want to let you know that I am working on it. I apologize for not getting it out sooner, but I am very limited in the amount of time that I can record, and so therefore I'm just trying to work around the time that I have, and this was a video that I could knock out pretty quickly. So, without further ado, we are going to be looking at a whole list of different things, and just to make it easier for you guys, if you look in the top left, as I go through each of these topics and kind of give a broad summary of what we're going to be talking about, there will be links to these, so if you don't want to watch everything, you don't have to. I will try to include the time as well if you are a mobile user, so that you are not, relegated to having to watch the whole thing simply because you can't click on links. So essentially, let's start out with hardware. Hardware is just going to be basically the type of mic and processor and all these other things that make up your recording system. So good stuff there. Next, we're going to be looking at audio recording settings and positioning, because these heavily influence the final outcome in terms of audio quality. And next, we're going to be doing screen capture software. We're going to look at 3 different types of screen capture software that are popular, more specifically Fraps, DxTory, Bandicam, and look at some of the different settings or different features that those particular software packages offer users. Then we're going to be looking at, let's see, potentially converting recorded video depending on your settings, audio recording, as well as post-audio processing and editing for trying to get to the best sound quality that you can, and then video editing and coding. So those are going to be everything that we're going to be covering today. So it sounds like a lot of stuff, but I promise you it will actually go by pretty quickly. So without further ado, let's get out of Minecraft and actually get started with having some fun. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so let us get started with hardware. Now, hardware may seem very basic, and it may not be something that you can do a lot about if you're stuck with the system or if you just upgraded or something. But if you're potentially looking at getting into video editing or doing Let's Plays or anything like that, here are some basic tips that I've learned along the way and that I have experience with. Now, currently, this is my processor. It's an AMD Phenom X6 1055T. I got it a few years ago for about $125 used. Actually, it was a pretty good deal. And I still have it because it pretty much does what I want it to do. Now, I may eventually phase this out, but I'm kind of reluctant to get rid of my 6 cores, and that's why I haven't switched to a Intel product as of right now. And the reason I say that is because in general, Intel processors are much better for the money than their AMD equivalent. AMD essentially insists on giving you a lot of extra functionality with their chips, whether it be virtualization or some of the extra enhancements over their Intel counterparts, and then they also offer it at a lower price. This is probably one of the better processors right now, the 357K or 3570K. I think there's also a 2550K that's also very popular, and you can get these for about $200. Essentially, if you're wondering whether you can do, video editing and recording and all that, I would probably suggest you have more than 2 cores. 2 cores you can get by, but it's going to be kind of slow, and you're going to have problems if you do a lot of editing. And so, if you have a choice, just try to get an Intel quad-core i5. I wouldn't go for an i7. I don't think they're worth it for what you get. And basically, the K at the end means it's unlocked or something that you can overclock easily. If you want to get into that later, it doesn't cost that much more over the normal variant. So for video cards, you have a lot of different choices. And they're all okay. Obviously, you want a decent graphics card depending on what type of material that you're recording, because it'll make the video nicer and, get your computer it to run more smoothly. However, my suggestion is to stay away from Radeon cards, especially if you're planning on going with Adobe-based products for Photoshop and, Premiere for editing, or After Effects for doing some visual enhancements. And the one that I have is a GTX 570. It's a little bit older, but not out of date, I don't consider. It's pretty good, actually. It has 480 CUDA cores, basically 1.25 gigs of memory. And the reason that these CUDA cores are important, and the reason that I suggest that people generally go with NVIDIA if they are interested in doing some video editing, is because that there are a lot of enhancements built into the Adobe Master Suite or Creative Suite for Premiere, After Effects, SpeedGrade, which I don't even know what that is, to be honest. Maybe they changed the name of one of them like they did with Soundstage and Audition, and Photoshop. And you can actually look right here, and I'll include this in the link, in a link below. But basically, Adobe Premiere, CS6, and CS5 5.5 supports use of your GPU when doing rendering. And basically what that means is, essentially when you're rendering, you're not going to be using your GPU for playing games or something. And what it essentially does is it takes the processor that you would normally use for rendering 3D video, and it helps to enhance the speed of certain functions within the programs that I mentioned before. Now, here are the lists of different graphics cards that are supported. As you can see, the GTX 570 is supported, and you have to take special note that it is going to be Windows only for most of these. And in fact, the only AMD graphics cards that have GPU acceleration are for OS X Lion. So keep that in mind if you are going to be purchasing a new graphics card and you plan on doing a lot of video editing. It does actually make a difference. Now, if you don't happen to have like one of these graphics cards, like let's say you have a GTX 460, you can actually get it to use your CUDA cores. And I will try to provide a link as well for that in the description below. But there are basically different little INI files that you can modify so that they will accept your 460 as well for doing some of the GPU enhanced rendering functionality. Now, I have two 120 gigabyte Vertex 3 hard drives that are SSDs. These are my primary system drives, and they can be useful for recording, but to be honest, 120 gigabytes, even with two of them, 240 gigabytes in RAID 0, that's not a lot of space, and so you don't end up recording to them as much as you would like. For that, you usually have a standard, a magnetic hard drive, something like this. I have 5 of these specifically, and these are useful for doing mass storage and things like that. They are not going to be as fast as the SSDs, even in RAID, but for mass storage, having a couple of gigs worth of just standard drives laying around is never a bad thing. Now, on to more, I guess, interesting things that people tend to, I guess, focus on more when it comes to recording, and that would be microphones. Now, one very popular model is the Blue Yeti, and in fact, I used to have one of these. And I have to say, overall, they're pretty good microphones. They give you pretty good sound quality for the cost. I mean, you can usually get them for around $100. I don't think this is the probably the best link to look at, and they're generally pretty well reviewed. However, before you make a decision on a microphone, I might throw out some, I guess, more details. My issue with the Blue Yeti is twofold. One, I don't like how it records my voice all that well. It does not pick up bass very well for me. That doesn't mean it isn't a good microphone, and it might work better for your voice. You have to pick your hardware based on your particular recording style and voice and all of that. But for me, that was a drawback. The other two drawbacks for this are, well, I guess they're kind of all wrapped into the same. For one, the USB port is this micro USB, or no, mini USB, sorry, and it is on the side of the bottom of the Yeti. And this is where you would connect a external mic stand. It would screw into here. Now, if you want to get a shock mount, which I'll cover in more detail in a second, one problem with the Blue Yeti is you have to use pretty much their shock stand because it's one of those things where the Blue Yeti is very large, and so a lot of the standard shock mounts will not work. And the problem with this is, and I will go back to this video, or this picture, you can see how it attaches to the microphone. It has this little knob that attaches to a screw that will screw into the bottom of the Blue Yeti. Now, in this picture, which I'm assuming is something that Blue published, you can see if you have a mic stand like this, where it's at the side, look how the microphone is tilted. It's going to be rotated towards the person, because that's what you want the microphone to be, how you want it to be oriented. Well, the problem with that is where this is, it will collide with this arm. And that is what happened to my Blue Yeti, is my mic stand is to the right of me, and so I wanted to rotate it, and it would cause this little arm to collide with the USB plug that inserted in here, and it eventually caused this whole assembly down here that was where the USB input came in to I basically become disconnected from the rest of the mic. Now, I could solder it back, and I've considered doing that, but to be honest, I got another mic and I've been more happy with it, and so I haven't messed with it. But that is one of the major drawbacks to the Blue Yeti, is this design. That, and you can, it's really hard to find shock mounts, if you want to use a shock mount, that will work with the Blue Yeti, and the one that they offer is $70. $70 for a shock mount. That's pretty expensive in my opinion. Now, you can also go with the Blue Snowball, and it's a pretty good mic. I would say watch out. There are several different versions of it, and essentially there are there are some versions you can do. We have a picture of it. I guess we do not. Essentially, on the back of the Blue Yeti, there's this little rotating knob that gives you different pattern selections for recording. This can be very useful for the your particular recording environment, and you can tune it so that you can hopefully pick up less background noise. Some of the versions of the Blue Yeti have this. Some of them do not. So when you're looking at them and if you're considering a Blue Snowball, consider that as well. I do think the Blue Snowball will work with about any shock mount, so it's not as necessary to use a Blue specific one. And to be honest, with theirs, I think it's this little switch in the back, if I remember correctly, that swaps the modes. But overall, I think that the Blue Snowball is a pretty good mic for the price. And let's see, it's about $65. Now, I will show you what I am using currently. And that is this, an Audio-Technica ATR 2500 USB. And part of the reason that I like this mic, now I do not like the blue light right here. That is kind of blinding, and I actually taped a piece of paper over it so that it's not so visible. But you do have the audio controls for increasing volume, decreasing volume. You obviously have the out for your headphones. But they have, how they've designed this is they use a USB plug, which is a much larger plug, and it mounts into the center of the microphone. And so essentially that will avoid the issue that you see with the Yeti with this very small little plug, where it constantly gets knocked up against your shock mount and potentially causes it to damage the mic over time. Now, I will say that the Audio-Technica has a few more issues because it does not offer the different recording modes. It does not, it picks up more background noise, to be honest. And that's the one drawback I have with that. But there are a lot of other microphones that are available. MXL makes several very popular ones. And if you look on Amazon and read the reviews, and then also search for reviews on Google, as well as on YouTube, where you can actually hear people comparing the mics side by side, you can get a sense for what kind of sound they capture, and that can be very useful if it is something where you're looking at purchasing a new microphone. Beyond that, I always suggest that you get a good set of headphones. It is very useful because you can actually listen to yourself as you're speaking. So that helps you maintain a more consistent volume level, which is always a good thing. This is the pair that I have, which is about $25. And, oh, I forgot to mention that here. You can get this microphone for under $50. And the other thing you might want is a pop filter. This will keep your, when you make P sounds, you tend to exhale a little bit, and so it will sometimes cause noise to come into the microphone. And so this cuts down on this. To be honest, I don't have that much of an issue with pop sounds, but if you do, you can purchase them for about $10 to $15. And don't worry about the Blue Yeti specific one. It looks nice, but it's not all that particularly great. And I think it's like $50. So definitely not worth it. Just get one of these. Now for shock mounts, if you do want to use a shock mount, there are a lot of different choices out there. And if you get a microphone that will mount to, to about any of these, there's a lot of different price ranges that you can look at. The Blue microphone one is actually one of the more expensive. It is very well built, I will say that. And for those of you that do not know what a shock mount is, basically, let's go back to this picture. You can see that the microphone is actually suspended by these elastic loops. Now, what that helps with is, you can hear me pounding the table, but it doesn't actually transmit the vibrations to the microphone itself, as opposed to if I hit it like this, you can hear it, and it basically cuts down on any accidental noise you might pick up if you bump into the desk, or if you are someone that's very animated with your hands, where you might accidentally cause something where the mic would pick it up. Now, the one thing that I would suggest everyone get is a good mic stand. All of these, I think, come with a mic stand as is. A lot of them come with something like this, where it's just like this little 3-foot deal. I think that's kind of what the snowball comes with. Where is the snowball? Yeah, it comes with something like this. And this one comes with this very fancy metal one. And they look nice, but to be honest, look, part of the key to getting good sound quality is to get the mic right up in front of you. You want to be speaking directly into the mic, and I'll give you a demonstration of what a difference it makes later. But if it is much better to get a more medium quality mic, like something like the Audio-Technica, and get a good mic stand, than it is to spend a lot of extra money on a mic, in my opinion. Because the differences in the mic are relatively minimal, and unless there's something where one really fits your voice so much better than all the others, getting a good mic stand is a worthwhile investment. I got mine off of eBay used for like 15 bucks several years ago, and if you look around for Studio Scissor mic stand or stand arm or boom arm or something like that, you can usually find them. This is not a terrible deal. Do make sure to read reviews, though, because a lot of these do come from China. Not that I'm, have anything against Chinese people, but they can be made rather shoddily. In the case of this one, it is actually set up for an XLR connector, which is the more standard connector, but you can easily just snake a USB cable through here if you want. And I would just keep the XLR connector there, just, maybe tape it back so it doesn't get in the way. What was I going to say? Oh, that was the other thing. With these types of mic stands, you can kind of see how they're spring-loaded. They can actually act to a certain degree like a shock mount. So again, if you are trying to save money and you don't want to spend a lot of money, try getting a good mic stand, because a shock mount is about 30 bucks. This whole mic stand is about 30 bucks. And it'll do a lot of the same thing, and it'll allow you to get your mic right in front of you and then move it out of the way very easily, and it will allow you to get better with the positioning when you are recording, and I promise you it will make a difference. I will show you more about this in a second. So that's all I think I had to cover with hardware. Oh, one more thing. Small thing. Keep a bottle of water nearby when you're recording. As you can probably tell, when I start talking for a while, my voice starts getting a little bit more raspy, and that's because I'm not drinking water because I don't want you to hear it. But trust me, I do use it between recording settings. It's very useful for keeping your voice kind of fresh and getting less gravelly. So I think that's about it for hardware. And so without further ado, let's go on to audio recording settings and positioning. Alright, so as I said before, having your microphone right up in your face is very important. And that's the reason that I always suggest that people invest in a good quality mic stand if they're actually going to be doing any sort of regular recording. And the main reason for that is because if you have your microphone on the desk, you're going to end up with a significant amount of echo in most cases. Essentially, how most microphones work is if your voice is more distant, it will try to pick up more sound. It will adjust the gain automatically. The Yeti does this, I know specifically because I dealt with it. And so if you go silent for long periods, it'll pick up background noise more readily. And the closer you are to your mic, the better your voice is going to sound. This is especially important for people that are younger, whose voices are going to be naturally a little bit more higher pitched. And the closer you get to your mic, it's actually going to make a huge difference. So to kind of demonstrate this, I am going to record 3 different segments for you at varying distances from my mic. So this is from the first chapter of Ender's Game, and we will start with me right next to my mic. I've watched through his eyes, I've listened through his ears, and I tell you he's the one. or at least as close as we're going to get. And now I'm going to go ahead and move about 6 inches away from my mic, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the difference. Now, obviously, it depends on what kind of device you're listening through. Like, if you're listening through a phone, it's going to be less noticeable, but if someone's listening on a computer with decent speakers, it is definitely very noticeable. So, again, this is about 6 inches away. I've watched through his eyes, I've listened through his ears, and I tell you, he's the one, or at least as close as we're going to get. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean back a little bit in my chair, get to about a foot away, which is what you usually see where people have like their microphone mounted on the desk, and I'll let you hear what that sounds like. I've watched through his eyes, I've listened through his ears, and I tell you, he's the one, or at least as close as we're going to get. So now I'm leaned all the way back forward. Hopefully you can kind of tell the difference. It does actually really show up in your final recording. So that's one of the reasons that I really suggest that you get used to talking with your mic right in front of your face, and that you invest in a good quality mic stand. Alright, one other thing before we move on. It is very important to also kind of look at your recording settings. Now, you can see here, this is my microphone under my sound menu in Windows, and there's a number of properties that we can change in here. Now, we can set it so that we can listen to this device. Now, on this microphone, unfortunately, that's kind of annoying, because it will, there's actually a slight delay, so it's almost like an echo effect. That is why I do not have it enabled by default, but if you do not have that issue with the particular microphone that you purchase, that is a good thing to have, because you can actually hear when you get closer or further away from the mic, and it gives you more control of your voice. Also, under levels, you want to make sure that your mic is not turned all the way up. Usually, because I like to record with my mic right in front of me, I set it to about 20 to 30, and that seems to be a good recording level for my voice. If you set it up all the way to 100, you're going to end up with a lot of distortion if you end up being right next to the microphone. If you do absolutely have to be further away, you can max this out, or at least bump it up somewhat, but it does end up capturing a lot more background noise, and so that is generally not recommended. Like I said, try to get your microphone right in front of you. It will really make a difference. So without anything else to cover here, let's go ahead and move on to screen capture software. Alright, so when it comes to screen capture software, there are a number of different choices out there. One of the, I guess, oldest and probably still most popular is Fraps. Now, personally, I do not like Fraps. The main reason for that is A, it seems to be a little bit buggy at points. B, the file sizes for it are absolutely huge. And C, it also seems to take up a little bit more processing power than some of the other alternatives. Fraps, if you want to buy a copy of it, is only $37. Act now. But to be honest, I would go with something else. Now, another piece of software that a lot of people use, at least on our server, is DxTory. Now, DxTory is not the most user-friendly piece of software to use, but it does have some really nice features. For one, you can pause recordings. And also, if you do want to use it for recording audio, now I don't usually suggest this, but with DxTory it's okay, because it will actually record your mic audio as a separate audio track, and then you can just right-click on it and export the WAV file separately, so that you can then actually edit it, because that's something that you're probably going to want to do once you're done recording. Now, I don't quite know what the situation with this is. I don't know if you... I think you can basically try it for free. I don't think it watermarks or anything, but then if you want to buy it, you have to go through PayPal, and it's in yen. And my main reason for not liking DxTory is basically the file sizes. They are, again, absolutely huge, and I don't like that. Now, Bandicam is the one that I use. It's a pretty good piece of software. I like it overall. Now, depending on what file format you output, it can greatly vary depending on, or it can greatly influence the final file size for your videos. But if you use the default Bandicam recording format, the file sizes are actually pretty small, and that's really nice. The issue with the default Bandicam file format is that it does not play nice with Adobe Premiere, and I don't think it works too well with Sony Vegas either. And you can use something called Format Factory, which is completely free, and I will provide a link to this below. Now, be careful when you do the install. I think it asks if you want to use like the ask.com toolbar or something. Just make sure you don't install anything other than Format Factory. But it is a very easy to work with and easy to use video converter that allow you to do batch converts if you want to keep the file sizes smaller and then convert it to something that is better for Sony Vegas or some of the other video, or well, so Adobe Premiere. I don't know about Sony Vegas, but I'm pretty sure it's the same. But basically, you can convert out several files at once using this, and I found it to be pretty good. The interface and everything is kind of clunky, but it's free. So what do you want? Now, Bandicam costs 39 bucks. So if you're going for the cheapest, I think DxTory is the way to go. But if you're going for probably the best, in my opinion, Bandicam is that. Now, for you Mac users, there is ScreenFlow. Now, ScreenFlow is interesting because it is a screen recording and videoing editing suite all in one. But it does cost $99. But I don't know what other options work on Mac. I don't know if any of these will. I don't think they do, now that I think about it. So if you are on Mac, this is the one that I know a lot of people use. There may be other options. I'm just not a Mac user, so I'm not aware of them. So that's pretty much your options. And let me go into the settings now that we've done that. And again, since I use Bandicam, that's what we're going to be using here. Now, I use, because my monitor is not 1080p standard, it is a 1920 by 1200. That's why it cuts off down below. I'm actually using a target window that's 1080p. You can actually target a particular program if you want, and that works fine. As you can see, it does have a pause option, just like DxTory. And I have everything export out to my Fraps folder, and then I could just drag and drop it into whatever folder that I'm going to be working out of for my particular project that I'm working on. Now, with the recording options, so let's go to video, and you can see that I'm using Motion JPEG. Now, this is the format that you have to use if you want the thing to be instantly, it's basically the mode that you have to use if you want it to be instantly, I guess, ready for Sony Vegas or Adobe Premiere. Under my settings, I have it to be full size because, again, I publish all my videos in 1080p. I do 60 frames per second. Even though it's not necessary for stuff like this, it is useful. You can drop this down to 30 frames per second if you want, which is basically the minimum I would suggest. And the reason that I do 60 is because if I ever want to slow down video for a particular sequence, I have more frames to work with, and therefore I can, basically slow down a video to 200% and not end up with any, frame drops or basically jagged movement. Codec is obviously Motion JPEG. I set the quality at 80. You can max this out if you want. 80 seems fine for audio, stereo, 4800 hertz for this, and the codec is PCM. Now, as you probably noticed from me using Audacity, I do not use this for recording my in-game or my voiceover audio, and that's because I like to edit it after the fact, and if you record with Bandicam, if you record it with the footage, it's going to be all merged together and you can't edit it later. I could tell it to record it, but I do not. They actually do not suggest this. As you see, it's recommended. And so these are the settings that I use for recording. So now that that is out of the way, let's go to audio recording, and that will be using Audacity, which you've already seen a little bit of, but I'll show you exactly how I process my audio as well. Alright, so as you can probably tell, I really like using Audacity, and it's the primary tool that I use for recording. However, there are some tricks to getting it to work right. And you also will probably want to use a few different filters or effects to enhance your audio. And the first one that I generally use is something called noise removal. And you can see in this audio here that there's all these little jaggedy little lines here. And what those essentially are, that's like background noise, whether it be computer fans, whatever, anything in the background is getting picked up. And so here's some audio that I recorded that has not been filtered or adjusted in any way. And so what we're going to do is we'll play it for you initially as it is now. If I had a daughter, I'd dress her in white and gold. I'd send her to the campus to cheer the brave and bold. And if I had a son, sir, I'd tell you what he'd do. He'd yell to heck with Georgia like his father used to do. Okay, so as you probably heard, there isn't a lot of background noise to it because I do keep my mic settings kind of adjusted lower. So it can't pick up a lot of background noise, but you can definitely see it on the bar. So how we remove this is, well, for one thing, before you start recording and after you finish recording, always make sure to wait like a second or two, basically so that you can have some silence where just the noise, the background noise is present. And then what we want to do is we want to go to Effect, Noise Removal, and get Noise Profile. And there we go. And then we want to go Effect, Noise Removal, and we want to select the whole thing this time. Let me say that. So we want to select the whole line, or the whole clip, and we want to go Effect, Noise Removal. And now that we have a noise profile, and basically this is just, basically the software just tries to identify specific repeating patterns, like a fan or something like that, we can hit OK. Now you can click preview if you want to hear it ahead of time, but it's only going to play for a few seconds, so it's really hard to get a good feel for it, and you can always hit Control+Z to go back. So I will just do that, and now you can see all of that jaggedness is all gone. Now the next thing we want to do is apply a compressor. Now as you can see in this video, or in this audio, there's a point right here where the noise suddenly spikes up. Now in most voiceover audio, you don't want this to happen. It's not a great idea. But if you're playing something like, I don't know, Amnesia, you may want there to be voice spikes. So you may want to adjust these settings accordingly. And basically what you're looking for is this ratio, and it's going to be different for each voice and each person's talking style. Mine is usually set 7.5 to 1, and you'll see what happens when we apply this. So we'll hit OK, and you'll see that those spiky areas are now greatly reduced. So basically what it's trying to do is make it a very steady and consistent volume. Again, if it's something where you're talking excitedly at certain points and then you're more tense and waiting for something to happen, you may not want to run the compressor. And once we're done running the compressor, we're then going to do normalize, and this will basically take out any distortion that might have been caused by us compressing the audio. It basically just tries to clean it up a bit, and so we're going to hit OK. And this is going to make it so that it's all pretty even, but nice and loud. Like there's a good volume to it. And now that we've done that, let's play the audio again. If I had a daughter, I'd dress her in white and gold. I'd send her to the campus to cheer the brave and bold. And if I had a son, sir, I'd tell you what he'd do. He'd yell to heck with Georgia like his father used to do. Alright, so hopefully you can kind of tell the difference between the original and that one. But just so that it becomes more clear, I'm going to go ahead and play them again for you, just so that you can hear them side by side, so you can tell exactly what kind of a difference that kind of thing makes. If I had a daughter, I'd dress her in white and gold. I'd send her to the campus to cheer the brave and bold. And if I had a son, sir, I'd tell you what he'd do. He'd yell to heck with Georgia like his father used to do. If I had a daughter, I'd dress her in white and gold. I'd send her to the campus to cheer the brave and bold. And if I had a son, sir, I'd tell you what he'd do. He'd yell to heck with Georgia like his father used to do. Alright, so with that done, let me also share with you a little trick that I've learned along the way that helps me out. Because one of the biggest pains that you see with doing this type of recording is that you've got to sync up the video with the audio, and there's no because you're going to start the audio usually first and then start the video. It's usually going to be one of those things where it'll be harder to sync up. And so what I like to do is when I'm recording, like let's say I was recording right now, what I will do is I will go a 1 and a 2 and a 3. In that me doing that countdown at the beginning really helps me to like sync up the audio and the video. Now I don't always get it perfect, as you may have noticed in some of my videos, but if you can do something on screen that is a visual cue, it's kind of like in the movies where they'll do a clapper. Like they'll say like take 1 and it'll be this thing and it'll go clap. That's what they're doing. They're actually recording the audio separately from the video, and they're using that clap to synchronize the two together. And so that's what we try to do here with these hand motions and things like that. Now, if you do want to do some more intensive audio editing, like I do occasionally, I will use Audacity. Or not Audacity. Audition. There we go. And this is an Adobe product. And this is some work I've been doing on a voiceover. Well, not recently, but I was working on it a while back. And you can see here, like, this is fading things out, fading things in. And you have a lot more options within Audition if you have access to this particular program, like adaptive noise reduction, vocal enhancer, de-esser, chorus, and you can actually set different profiles for these things, where you can do different presets. And for this particular track, because I was going for a very particular style and I wanted to very particular track. Yeah, I'm getting a bit repetitive with my word choice there, but whatever. Basically, with this, I wanted to be able to space out the wording very carefully, and so each segment is split up, and I can adjust the audio on it individually, independent of the main track. And just to give you a taste of kind of some of the stuff that you can do in Audition, Adobe Audition, not Audacity, here's a little bit of a sample from this particular file I've been working on.
In the land of Minecraft, there were once 2 intrepid explorers. One an admiral of an immensely powerful redstone fleet, and myself, an individual who took pride in being a galactic guide for others in need. Together.
obviously this is not finished, but it is something I've been working on, and you can tell that it has a very different sound from just me normally talking, and that is in part because I was actually doing a something of a voice for it, and also the fact that I have some of these different effects to make it sound more kind of mystical was kind of the feel I was going for. And so if you do want to do some, you know, heavier editing, you can do it on Audacity, but really, to be honest, it's not its strong suit, and this is a much better program for that. So now that we've covered that, let's finally move on to our last segment, which is video editing and encoding. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are nearly done, and we are finally to the main event of tonight's, I guess, video. And this is going to be mainly about video editing, although that's not quite totally accurate. But these are the two tools, basically, that I use for rendering a video. This one is by the name of After Effects. It's, again, another Adobe product. And this is the one that I happen to use least, but it is probably the most powerful. And the cool thing about After Effects is that you can do all sorts of really neat kind of particle effects and stuff like that. And this is something that I've been working on for that voiceover audio that I showed you earlier. And this is one particular scene in it, and I will show it to you rendered before we move on. I'm not going to go into the actual settings of this because there's lots of videos on that, but I did want you to know that this particular product existed and what it's used for. Essentially, this is all for doing special effects, whether it be like 3D camera pans and stuff like that, but this is not really supposed to be a primary editing tool, and the main reason for that is all these effects take forever to render. Now, I will also point out that this is an early rendition of an idea I had for how I wanted to do a particular part of the video, and so it's not complete, but I'll go ahead and let you guys show it, or let you guys see it as is.
In the land of Minecraft, there were once two intrepid explorers. One an admiral of an immensely powerful redstone fleet, and myself an individual.
Alright, so now that we're back, let's move on to the next piece of software, and this would be Adobe Premiere. And I know a lot of people use Vegas, but I just am an Adobe guy, so I tend to use Adobe products for everything, and such is the case with Premiere. And this is in fact the video that you are currently watching. I've gotten every sequence pretty much done up to this one, and as you can see, it's all nicely laid out on our timeline here. And what makes this product really cool for video editing is just how easy it is, because it's like I can go ahead and, you know, like for this one sequence here, I can set the parted, you know, a different audio track because the one picked up by Bandicam was not loud enough. And I'm going to go ahead and export the commentary track, which is on audio track 2, so that I can mix it down so that it's a little bit more even across all of the different layers. Because as you can see, I had to segment it up just because I can't record in audio Audacity while I'm trying to play in it as well. It just won't let you do it. So it's kind of annoying in that regard. So that's why there's so many segments in here. And then obviously the different samples that we play throughout it. And we can always, you know, play sections just to see how it plays, you know, close to the final product. And this is really where having an NVIDIA card really helps, because it'll help you to play those things in real time without having to worry so much about things getting preloaded and all. So, for example, if I want to play this from the first chapter of Ender's Game, and we will start with me right next to my mic. And you can see it's pretty much instantaneous whenever I want to start doing that. Now, for you to be able to do that, I think it's under the sequence settings. Oh, nope, nope, nope. Wrong one. Project settings. So if you go to project settings and general, and if you want to use the GPU accelerated playback and all of that, all you have to do is choose the Mercury, there we go, that's the word, playback engine GPU acceleration, and it'll automatically take advantage of that. And you'll see some of these different effects. I use dip to black a lot, and some of them will be the 32-bit ones, I do believe, are the ones that will allow you to do to use the GPU acceleration, so that again it does not lag your processor when you're just trying to watch a video back, and it gives you a little bit cleaner playback. So that's always a nice thing. Okay, so beyond that, now you're done editing. You've gotten all of your stuff together. As you can see, I've got another sequence here for the intro because of all these overlays. So you're done editing. Everything's ready to go. How do I export to get the smallest file size but still keep high quality? And this is where you can mess with some different things, but the general setting that I use is when I go to export, you can choose F4V. Now, the two formats that YouTube pretty much uses natively are MPEG-4 and F4V, and they're actually essentially the absolute same settings. So, like, we would do F4V for this, and of course we would want to do export audio, export video, and for the audio I do AAC. Oh, there we go. As I scroll through things, changing my settings. And I don't do maximum render quality, just because it doesn't really seem to benefit me that much. And you can use frame blending if you want, but I always disable it. And you can see that this is a... oh. That's why it's so small. Okay, so let's see. So this is going to be a... how long is this going to be? This is going to be 46 minutes right now. And by the way, I apologize for the length. I was just trying to get everything in that I could think of to add. And yeah, it just took a little bit longer than I had originally anticipated. And see, it's saying that the estimated file size is 3,416 megabytes. And my guess is that's going to be way off. And the reason for that is because we have a lot of static screens being shown, whether it's like me looking at web pages where this isn't changing a lot. Essentially how encoding works and compression works is it's going to be looking for changes on the screen. So if I'm looking at a screen like this and not a large number of the blocks are changing, it in fact means that it's going to be very easy for this to encode, and it's going to lead to a very small file size. That is opposed to like Minecraft, where you're constantly panning around and there's all these gradients, and that actually leads to much higher file sizes. But the other benefit to doing it in F4V, which is the format that I almost always export in, is that, as I said, this is the format that YouTube natively uses. So like once I do get it uploaded, I will get it basically takes only 5 or 10 minutes processing time for it to actually post, which is a great benefit. So you're not sitting there like waiting for like an hour and a half. Like, are you going to finish processing, YouTube? Are you going to finish processing? You just post it and it's pretty much up within a few minutes. So these are, I mean, the settings I almost always use. There's really nothing all that unique about them. But if you don't know to use F4V or MP4, it could definitely take longer. And you do try to essentially, I guess, minimize the amount of screen changes within a certain period. I mean, obviously, you want to keep the screen constantly moving, but if you can reduce reduce the number of gradients and things like that, it will actually benefit you in the long run in terms of file size. So my guess is this is going to probably be 1800 megabytes. That would be my guess. And maybe less, maybe more. I'll actually post it in the description below. So if you want to take your own guess and see if you're right or wrong, I'll put it at the bottom. And you can see how you fare. But anyways, that's it. I mean, I know a lot of this is kind of redundant. And if you know how to use any of the software, you're probably like, oh, well, this is not a big deal. But really, this is oriented towards people that are not that familiar with using these different tools, and also to make them aware that they exist. So anyways, this is Andrew and Price, hoping that you enjoyed the video, hoping you got something out of it and found it entertaining, educational, etc. Saying good night and good recording, I think, or good gaming, whichever. But either way, bye.